That particular scene was extraordinarily accurate. At the end of the film, he realizes he can't stay any longer. And then he realizes it's okay to let go. When you have a really powerful feeling, you can absolutely save lives. I like to think it's God talking to you and using you to help others. I can't even imagine the accident I would have had I not obeyed that voice in that moment. Was that God speaking to me?
Before we begin, please note that the views and opinions expressed by our guest are her own and do not necessarily reflect those of this podcast or its host. Today, we explore adventures on a spiritual path, the intersection of faith and the science of metaphysics. Joining us is Tina Erwin, author and ghost helper. Welcome to the show, Tina.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm excited too. So glad you're able to join us today. Tina, as a retired commander officer with 20 female submarine instructor, what was your experience like being a trailblazer in those roles?
You know, I'm a student of karma, which means action and reaction. And what I discovered was that people didn't know what to do with a woman officer. And I mean, the submarine force is the most exclusive men's club ever, with billion-dollar toys to play with and go explore the ocean. They said, well, what would you like to do now that you're here? And I said, I'd like to teach class. And I had to show them how it would benefit them. And I explained to the commanding officer of sub-school that he could be a trailblazer with me. He could take a chance on me. So I became the first female officer in the history of submarine school, which helped my career. And it established the credibility of women, because they're going to judge you. They're going to judge all women by what they found in me, whether that's right or wrong.
First,
that's what happens. And I ended up being apparently pretty good. And they were very pleased.
Let's move on to doing your submarine service. What is the funniest or most surprising story you can share with us?
I have a surprising story, which is about, I'm talking about metaphysics. What happens if you get a feeling that you can't explain? You get this sensation. And this happened to a lieutenant on board a fast attack submarine. And the submarine was in what's called the tongue of the ocean. And they thought and it's a deep trough. They thought they were running parallel to the walls. This guy wakes up and he says, he goes to the watch and he says, I relieve you. The guy says, oh, you got another half hour, go back to sleep. And he says, no, I relieve you now. The guy's, dude, all right. So I stand relieved. He turns to the helm and says, all back full, right full rudder. He didn't ask permission. He had no reason to do that. But the submarine, instead of running parallel to the mountain, was running perpendicular. They were completely off course. So the submarine did hit the mountain, but it was a glancing blow. And that psychic sense saved 125 lives. And so what that taught me was that when you have a really powerful feeling, you can save lives. You can absolutely save lives because you can't explain it. But I like to think that it's God talking to you and using you to help others.
Well, what is metaphysics and what role does it play in your work?
What metaphysics is the type of science that either hasn't been discovered or we don't understand it yet. And so when you're studying things that can't readily be explained by the physics you think you know, that's metaphysics. But we're getting to the point where the physics we know and metaphysics are now merging. And that's where quantum entanglement and string theory comes from. And I don't want to get really complicated, but if we go from the premise that God is the first scientist, God is the first mathematician, God is the first geologist and biologist, when you create, then all that comes from it, all the sciences are the creation of God, period. That is my personal philosophy. So when I'm studying metaphysics, I'm studying the physics of God that maybe we haven't quite discovered yet. That feeling you had about your mother, the need to stand up now and talk about your dad. All of those are really important. And my theory is that you can't drive a car. You can't be a good mom or a good friend or a good parent if you don't have a feeling about something. It's what makes us human. You meet someone and you like them instantly. You have a connection. That's a type of metaphysics. You can't necessarily explain it. You can say, or you meet someone and you go, I just can't explain it. I just can't stand that person. I just want to run screaming out of the room. I said when I met my mother-in-law. No.
A lot of people feel that way, Tina, about the mother-in-law.
Or when I have 2 daughters-in-law. When each of them walk through the front door, I had this very powerful feeling that's going to be my daughter-in-law. Not that girl. This girl I will spend, she will be a part of our family. So everything I do from this moment forward will determine the relationship. So I need to pay attention. So was that connection that I have with God telling me to embrace each of these young women and love them because they married, my sons who I dearly love. And I am blessed with 2 of the most fabulous daughter-in-laws anyone could have. And I have my daughter's boyfriend is an amazing man. So, and will they get married someday? None of my business. It's their business. We just love him right now. So when you can embrace the person in front of you, because you're listening to something that's not a warning, but an advisement. But when you drive a car, I've had any number of experiences where I swear there was an angel in the car with me that said, change lanes right now. I was in Charleston, South Carolina, heading to the base at night. And I was a lieutenant, and I got into the fast lane on Interstate 26, and this voice said, change lanes right now. So I'm a good naval officer. I just changed lanes, right 2 lanes. And as I looked over into the left lane, there were railroad ties that had fallen off a truck. I can't even imagine the accident I would have had I not obeyed that voice in that moment. Was that God speaking to me? I don't know, but I'm real grateful.
Well, I'm gonna tell you, I think a lot of people have that feeling. They hear a voice, and a voice tell them to do something.
In a positive way.
Right. Oh, well, of course, Tina. And the apostle, you said a voice, right? A voice. You don't know if it was God or not who told you, but you did move it, and thank God you were saved, and you're here today to talk to me. You stated that you help souls cross over. Since your work is different from the Bible teaching, right? Where does God fit in, if he fits in at all?
Do you remember the movie Ghost with Patrick Swayze and Whoopi Goldberg? When Patrick Swayze dies, he turns around, he doesn't understand he's dead. He runs after the guy. He has no idea he's dead. And he's so angry, and he turns around, and then he sees his body. And the shock of seeing his body. So several things happened all at once. He's killed. He doesn't understand he's dead. He turns around and sees his body. Demi Moore is grieving and in shock, and he looks in a different direction, and he sees this beautiful white light. And he's kind of drawn to it, but the frequency of the act of murder is so crushing. He doesn't go into that light readily. He feels this anger, so he doesn't move into the light. And God sends the light. God sends this light. And it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And when you die, you still have free will. I think that may be part of the confusion. You can choose to go into the light or not. He didn't choose to do it at that time. That particular scene was extraordinarily accurate. At the end of the film, he realizes he can't stay any longer. He needs to move into the light, and the light comes for him. And the phrase he says, "Oh, you just can't believe the love. The love, oh, you just can't believe the love." And then he realizes it's okay to let go. And the people who they actually are able to see it, which is also accurate. Sometimes you can see that person move into the light. That was, one of the most accurate films about dying and what happens afterwards, not the mystery and how he solves it. That's just good, good cinematic, entertainment. But some of the elements are correct. Those little guys with the, red eyes, they're called lower realm intelligences. I've seen them. They come when someone has committed a murder. They come with, horrific drug dealers or human traffickers. And these people go to a very darker place. In my Father's house are many, many mansions, meaning there are many frequency levels. So when you cross into that light, you go to the frequency level commensurate with who you are. If you're a good, loving, wonderful person, well, you're going into this great frequency. Everyone is going to see the light, but where you go inside that part of the heaven world is purely dependent on you as a soul. Souls live forever. Mortal bodies get exhausted with the stress of living sometimes. Sometimes people just give up. And sometimes someone takes their own life and they're so sorry. They thought it was going to be better, but it isn't.
I remember watching on TV, they have like the ghost hunters and all of that. And when I see the ghost hunters, I just turn the channel. I'm not interested in that, But then I say, oh, well, let me have a ghost helper on the show just to see where they're coming from. So I'm glad you're here just to, we just have the conversation. Just want to hear what you have to say. No judgment, nothing like that. We're just talking.
Completely.
Right. And that's just telling you where I'm coming from, from my beliefs, and you talk about where you coming from. The Bible strictly forbids seeking counsel from mediums. Right? Have you ever had a religious leader secretly seek you out for advice?
I have not had a religious leader, but I have had the children of pastors contact me. I have had people who are super Christian contact me. I had a very interesting healing story about someone who to this day is a very, very devout Christian person. And it was actually pretty miraculous. And we used her faith to heal her because no doctor could heal her. And someone sent her to me. And she was the whole thing, don't talk to a medium. And so a lot of the things that I might have worked on with someone else, I couldn't work with her. So the circumstances were, this is a woman who's done a lot of service. So she has an inherent goodness to her soul. And this woman's so smart, sharp as a tack, really, really good, very responsible person. But she was reaching the point she's becoming a total cripple. One of the things she had been doing was helping women who had been human trafficked. You have any idea how much courage it is to listen to what's happened to these women? I have a client who was human trafficked, and it just pushes you to the edge of sobbing. And she had stopped doing that, but the effect on her happened in her feet. And so I invited her to ask Christ to help her. And it's almost as if she felt the pain of the imprisonment of these women. Some women are actually shackled. I don't know if people know that. They're shackled in their ankles. Some of them are shackled in their wrists, which is horrific. So what we did was we talked about the pain of what she was seeing when she worked with these women, the pain of hearing it, because our emotions determine a great deal about what happens in our body. And together we brought the light of Christ consciousness and invited it within her and asked in the most humble and respectful way for the light of Christ consciousness to heal her foot. Because every doctor had given up. And I knew what it was. It was this darkness of what's happened to these women. If you work with them, it affects you. You couldn't be human if it didn't.
Of course.
And within 24 hours, she was no longer limping, and she's perfect. Her legs are perfectly normal. And she used, with just a slight assist from me, the power of her own faith to heal her. And I think it was such a surprising thing because she was so afraid to talk to me and she didn't know what to expect. And I understand that. I completely get that. But you can love God and understand the physics of God on another level and follow what's called spiritual law. There are certain spiritual laws. If you are truly dedicated to the light of God, you have to follow. First, do no harm. It's one of the first rules. Love others as you love yourself. The golden rule, all of those things. And what the woman sent me the sweetest thank you note. And it helped her to understand the dynamic of belief in Christ. That dynamic belief in Christ can heal people if someone just sometimes shows them a way to think about it within themselves. Prayer works because it's a powerful energy. That's why I wrote the Crossing Over Prayer book. I have a lot of people who have a hard time in churches, but they believe in prayer.
Okay. You said a lot of people have problems in church, right? Do you think maybe they're coming to you because maybe their faith is not as strong or they so desperate? Let me seek a ghost helper. You see what I'm saying? When
Yes,
people are desperate to seek help.
it's actually even a little more complicated than that. I had a woman in North Dakota whose 17-year-old son took his own life. And I wrote the compassion prayer for suicide because one of the things that people are told is if your family member takes their own life, that this is a horrible sin and that they're going to be punished. And I have a different view.
The person committed suicide, right? Sometimes we don't know why people do certain things. There might be someone who commits suicide because they found out that they have like dementia or they were sick and they cannot take it anymore. Do we think God is really going to condemn you if you're so sick you can't take it anymore? The pain is so great.
I've heard so many reasons why a person takes their own life. It's not my job to judge them. I bring in an angel and I ask that angel, would they please escort them into the light of God? I mean, it's really that simple. It's nothing, no hocus pocus, no magic, no stupid cards, which are just horrible. It's simply a loving prayer. Heavenly Father, please take this soul into your light and your arms. And that's what's in the Crossing Over Prayer books. It crosses the lines of all faiths. It doesn't pick a particular faith because I have a lot of people from different faiths use that book. So she used the compassion prayer for suicide. She crossed over her son. She said, I want you to do it. And I said, I think as a parent, in the privacy, in the intimacy of your own home, when you say this prayer, this loving prayer it's a loving prayer, it's going to change some things. And she said it did. She couldn't believe how much better she felt, because she can't tell the difference between her grief and his grief, because he's a ghost standing next to her, so sorry, trying to apologize. And then she contacted me and said, I want to keep sending him prayers. What can I send? So I wrote the prayer that if anyone can send after their loved one has been crossed over, so that they can continue to send them. I said, you can write this yourself. You don't need me to do it. She said, well, it sounds better if you write it. So I put it in the book at her request, and I gave her credit for asking that. She now speaks at groups to help parents whose children have taken their own lives. It's how you pay compassion forward. I guess if there would be one word I would offer, no matter how someone dies, no matter who they were, when you ask God to help that soul, and anyone can do that, you ask for the light of Christ consciousness to come to that soul and help them. It is the compassion every one of us will want for ourselves. If you look at the miracles in the Bible, think about this. There's so many, and I'm not a student of the Bible. I do not claim to be a student of the Bible, but I am a student of history. There are so many astounding miracles in the Bible that have been proven to come to be true over and over and over. And people would look at those as miracles or astounding. The word applied would really be metaphysics. It's beyond the physics, the science of God, So you call it a miracle. But now they're discovering, the walls of Jericho came down because of sound vibration. Well, before that would be metaphysics. Now we know it's the science of sound.
And then someone else that I'm just saying,
right.
And then a religious person, I'm not saying I'm not religious, but a religious person would say, Tina, that's not true. So everyone have their own. You help them to cross over, right? Isn't that God's job? Does he really need you to help them to cross over?
Well, I'm going to answer that question with a question. I would say yes, because if God was crossing every last person over, why are there so many ghosts? People have been identifying ghosts as long as there's been time. And people say, oh, that's a miracle. Well, one person's miracle is another person's metaphysics. It's just, you have the energy of an angel with you. If that's what it is, you have an energy of an angel with you, or you meet someone and they're glowing, then you're trying to understand, why is this person glowing and this person not glowing? You understand that it's how that person feels inside. Well, that energy is the spark of life. It's the spark of the divine in you. The divine lives in every human being. When someone dies, sometimes they don't know they're dead. A child has no idea what to do when death comes. None. They don't know where their mommy and daddy are. They don't know they're dead. They don't understand what happened to them. And they see the light, but they don't know what they're supposed to do.
So you say they're stuck? You say they're stuck?
I would say that, I hate the word stuck, but I would say that they're really confused.
I mean,
yeah, stuck could be a good word. They're confused. They want, and they stand next to their family members, which just dramatically exacerbates the grief of the family members. You leave your body, and there's something called Carillion photography, which was invented by a Russian photographer. Then they have photographed the soul leaving the body at death. It's astounding photography. So we know that energy, which is God's law, energy is neither created nor destroyed. It's like the second law of thermodynamics. That's just basic physics 101. So the energy that's you, your personality, your memories, your dreams, has to go somewhere. That which is you doesn't become compost. Just like the butterfly sheds that cocoon. but the spark of the divine in the butterfly lives forever. And so if you don't understand what to do when you die, in most religions, if you died in the next 5 minutes, do you know exactly what you're supposed to do?
You have 9 books of metaphysics. Could you tell us what they briefly about?
Lightworker's Guide to Healing Grief, all kinds of grief.
Okay.
I have 3 books on ghost stories from the ghost point of view, what it's like to be dead.
Mm-hmm.
I have several books on karma. I have books on soul evolution, how and why souls live forever. I have the Crossing Over Prayer book, and my 9th book is a pretty hefty book, Psychic Children, Psychic People. So this book helps you to help your child connect directly to God so that you have that divine guidance and bring that child along in the light of God, not anything else, or the light of Christ consciousness. And that can help bring a family peace and can help them know how to help the child. That's what's in this book.
Where can they purchase your books?
All my books are on Amazon. All 9 books are on Audible, and I narrated them all myself.
Thank you again for joining us. We appreciate you sharing your insights and explaining your work as a ghost helper. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I really love this.
For our viewers at home watching, if you like what you see, subscribe to The Jocelyn Moore Show. Want to be a guest on our show? Head over to our website, www.jmentertainment.info. On the homepage, click on About and follow directions to be a guest. If you have any questions about today's show or past or future shows, just click Contact on our website and submit a message. Thank you for tuning in, and until next time, take care and keep watching.